Hi, I'm Satoshi from Indiana University. I'm going to present a computational model of early word learning from infant point of view. This is a joint work by Satoshi Tsutsui, Arjun Chandra Sekran, MD Reza, David Crandall, who are from computer science, and Chen Yu from cognitive science. A motivation of this study is to model infants' word learning mechanism. Infants produce their first word as early as 6 months old. If we take the learner's point of view, this task of word learning is very challenging due to something called referential uncertainty. Let's look at some examples. Suppose that a child is looking at this view, and then parents said here's a turtle. In the child's view, he can see colors and of course turtles and some other object. Then how can a child tell that which object is a turtle? That's the referential uncertainty. This situation often happens when children are learning name of the objects. In general, learning object names in everyday context requires young children not only find and recognize visual objects, but also map these objects to the names that they heard. And of course, they have to address the referential uncertainty. Previous work addressed the problem using the simulated images like we show here. These laboratory experiments can provide some insights. However, we believe that we should use more realistic environment where infants naturally interact with the parents. And that's the uniqueness of our study. Before we get into details, let me provide the structure of this paper. Our goal is to build a model to simulate early word learning. The model has to recognize the visual object and then associate these objects with the labels. The model takes the raw video and the speech collected from the infant's point of view. We then systematically manipulate the input and use the model to investigate how different input data influence the different learning outcomes. So here's the environment we prepared. We have an infant and its parent playing freely with 24 toys. The infants are around 20 months old. Both of them have a camera mounted on their head with eye tracking, which means we can capture the view from their own perspective and also we can point out where they are looking at. Let's see some example. This is a moment that parents said, should we put the door? This is a view of the same scene from child view with eye gaze visualized. The same scene look like this from parent view. Moreover, we have object detected like this. Because we have eye gaze, we can also identify the attended object. To use this data for word learning, we use a model that can be trained directly from these captured images. Our model is a CNN which achieved a very impressive performance in computer vision. Given an image, the model will output the probability distribution of the predefined objects. Please note that we do not argue that CNN approximates the mechanism that kids use in their brain. We just use it as an off-the-shelf learner without any customization to word learning. The model requires image and label pairs, and here's how we process the data to get it. We identify a naming utterance, which is a segment of parent speech containing a name of object. For example, that's a helmet. Recent study shows that the moments during and after hearing a word is crucial for learners to associate the object and the words. Because the average naming utterance is 1.5 to 2 seconds, we use the frames corresponding to 3 seconds starting from the onset of the naming event. In this way, we can include the during and after the naming events. Let's look at some examples. Here are the frames that a parent said, one little ladybug. The referent object, or ladybug, is held by the parent, but child can actually see many other objects. This is a referential uncertainty. In the next example, the parent said it is a snowman. The child is holding multiple objects in his hand, so he has to decide which one is the snowman. This is another referential uncertainty. The last example is the moment that parents said, "How about the helmet?" However, the helmet or the referent object is only visible in parent view and it is occluded in the child view. This is the example that makes the learning task very challenging and also ambiguous. The frames corresponding to these naming events become a training data for CNNs. However, we don't just use these images as a training data as it is. Human vision is foveated, which means the area around the gaze is more higher resolution, whereas the area far from the gaze has lower resolution. Therefore, we simulate that effect using an acuity filter, as we show in the right side. After the training is done, we test the performance of the model in this way. First, we prepare a clean background images of the object, like we show here. These images are captured from multiple views to test the capacity of the model, and we have a total of around 3,000 images. The metric we use is the accuracy, which is the number of correctly classified images divided by the total number of test images. For example, suppose we only have 4 images for tests, like we show here. If the model correctly classifies 3 images out of 4, the accuracy will become 75%. Alright, we finish explaining the methodologies. Now, let me explain the experiments we did. Specifically, we performed 3 studies. The study 1 is to investigate if the word learning task can be addressed from the raw images captured from the child's own point of view. The study 2 is to investigate the effect of different attention strategies during the naming event. The study 3 is to investigate the effect of visual property of the attended objects. For each experiment, we will explain motivation, setup, and results. The first study has multiple motivations. The first motivation is to demonstrate that an off-the-shelf CNN can learn visual object mapping directly from the captured data. The second motivation is to compare the child and parent views and then decide which view is the better. The third motivation is to investigate the quantitative impact of the training data, or specifically the number of naming events. To investigate these things, we train CNN for each view, and then we also subsample the naming events into 7 different subsets with different number of events. Here are the results of the study 1. Y-axis is the accuracy of the test data, and then x-axis is the number of naming events, and blue line represents the child view, and then orange line represents the parent view. With 200 or more naming events, models trained from infant data consistently outperform the model trained from the parent data. As the quantity of training data increased, the model trained from infant data performed better and better, while the model trained from parent data got saturated. This result suggests that the model can solve the name-object mapping from the raw video directly recorded from the egocentric view, and also infant data contains certain properties leading to the better word learning compared to the parent data. Okay, let's move on to the study 2. Motivation of this study comes from the fact that the 3-second window we choose actually contains the during and also after the hearing the naming events. Therefore, infants can look at multiple objects, or alternatively, they can continue looking at the same object. Therefore, the purpose of this study is to investigate how these 2 attention strategies can influence the word learning. Please note that even if they keep looking at the same object, it might not be the object that is named. To investigate these things, we divided the naming events into 2 types. One is sustained attention and the other is a distributed attention. We call the event sustained attention if an infant looked at the single object for more than 60% of the time. Otherwise, we call it distributed attention. We visualize the example for each case at the bottom. For the top one, because the child looked at the object 1 for more than 60% of the time, it's a sustained attention event. On the other hand, in the bottom side, the child looked at 3 objects and then none of the look is more than 60%. So this is distributed attention. The threshold of 60% is determined to make the both sets roughly equal. As a result, we got around 700 events for each type. We then trained the CNN for each set. Here's the result of experiment 2. So we use the blue for sustained attention and then orange for the distributed attention. The accuracy of sustained attention is higher than the distributed attention. This suggests that the sustained attention on a single object while hearing the name of an object is better for learning object names. This finding is consistent with the previous work, which states that being able to keep sustained attention is crucial for early infant development and healthy development outcomes. This experiment investigated the attention in the temporal scale, but the attention in the spatial region is still unclear. This brings us to the experiment 3. While studied to investigate the effect of temporal attention during a naming moment, the effect of sensory information selected and processed in the naming moment is still unclear. Therefore, we study how visual properties of the attended object influence the word learning. Specifically, previous work shows that objects attended by infants tend to be large in the view, providing higher resolution image. To investigate the effect of them, we divided the naming events into 2 groups: the large object groups and small object groups. The large object means that the bounding box of the attended object is more than 6% of the field of view, while the small object is less than 6%. This threshold of 6% is determined as a median of the bounding box size, so that each set will contain the same number of naming events. Here's the examples of large object and small objects. And here's the result. We show the accuracy of large object as blue and small object as orange. Obviously, the model trained with large object achieved significantly higher accuracy than the model trained with small objects. However, we have a concern. The large object in naming event may simply correlate with sustained attention in study 2, making the effect of visual properties unclear. Therefore, to distinguish these 2 covariant factors, we divided naming events into sustained attention and distributed attention as in study 2, and we did that for each of the large and small sets. And here's the results. Fortunately, we observed the same results for both attention type. This means that the visual properties of the target object indeed has a direct and unique influence on word learning. Alright, let's summarize. So this paper investigated how do infants learn words from ambiguous experiences, which is a referential uncertainty. The uniqueness of our paper is to use the egocentric video and the head-mounted eye tracker to capture the actual data that the infants are perceiving. We have 3 key findings. First finding is that the available information from infant point of view is sufficient for a machine learning model to successfully associate the object names with visual objects. Second, the moment of sustained attention during parent naming event is a better visual input for word learning compared to the moments when infants show more distributed attention. Lastly, in moment property of infant visual input influence early word learning. In other words, a large object size in the field of view is better for word learning. Of course, we have a future work. First, because we extracted naming moment, we didn't use the entire speech, so using more speech is a future work. That means we can investigate how infants learn not only object names, but also other types of words, for example, verbs. Lastly, we should also investigate the effect of social cues in child-parent interactions. These nonverbal communication should also influence the word learning. That's it. Thank you very much for listening.